Still focusing in on youth here on Morning Live, and despite South Africa's youth participating in economic growth, many still face challenges, including financial exclusions and job instability. As we mark Youth Month this morning, we take a look at the role played by private and public partnerships and how investing in and supporting young people can fast-track our economic growth. In partnership with Coca-cola Beverages South Africa, we are joined in studio by Tsholofelo Mqhayi, and she, of course, is the head of social transformation at Coca-cola Beverages South Africa. Also with us in studio, we've got Waseem Carrim. He's the CEO of the National Youth Development Agency. And also, but this time virtually, we've got Sanele Zulu, who's the chairman and founder of the Green Youth Indaba. Good to have all of you. Thank you very, very much for joining us on Morning Live.
Good morning.
Good. Thanks, Sanele. Good morning to you as well.
Morning, Leanne, and morning to my colleagues there that I'm seeing on studio.
All right, so Tsholofelo, let me begin with you. So let's talk about Coca-cola Beverages South Africa. Perhaps you can share how driving the economic impact for youth in local communities is actually going at the moment.
Thank you so much. Morning once again. So for Coca-cola Beverages South Africa, our purpose really is to refresh the country and make it a better place, right? And for us, really, our focus is around people. And how do we then cultivate and co-create key sustainable solutions? And we do this by looking at public and private partnerships. And also, whilst we are doing that, we want to also look at how do we then drive and deliver on key sustainable growth. And we look at economic inclusion. So economic inclusion for us really is about how do we open up gainful, economic opportunities, not only for the youth, but for women and also persons with disabilities. Yeah. And we look at two key pillars, which is employability and entrepreneurship. And this is why we then partner with, the private as well as the public sector to make sure that we're driving economic inclusion.
I'm going to ask you more details about how it actually works and perhaps some programs that are currently underway. But let's get the National Youth Development Agency in this. And Waseem, we know that public sector, it's vital that there are partnerships with business on key projects. It's not even an if, it is a has to happen. But education is also important. Is the key to successfully unlocking the full potential of our economy set in these partnerships?
Thanks, Leanne, and very much so. I think the answer to that is an overwhelming yes, right? I mean, even if we take a step outside youth employment, for example, if we look at the energy crisis in South Africa and the fact that we've now had no load shedding for 100+ days, that really has been a collaboration between business and government in South Africa. And it's a fundamental example of how we can solve major issues in our society through these public-private partnerships. Similarly with youth employment, just to give you a couple of examples how government and the private sector are already collaborating. We know most of big business in South Africa has enterprise supplier development targets that they'd like to meet, right? Public sector works very much with young people in communities, young people who've started out their enterprises. And we serve as a platform in connecting big business with young and up-and-coming entrepreneurs. Similarly, we often see business saying, we want to hire young people, but they may not be work ready as yet. We may not be able to find them, especially in rural communities. Again, government has a facilitation role to play, right? So I think the kind of partnership we talk about is where we each bring a little bit of skills and expertise, networks and connections. And ultimately the goal is to make life better for young people in South Africa.
Yeah, but ultimately it's not happening, because when we talk about the unemployment rate within the youth, it's a catastrophe. It really is, and we'll get into that more. But let's bring Sanele in. So Sanele, from your organization, that of course is the Green Youth Indaba. I mean, you amplify your commitment to environmental sustainability, providing dynamic platforms for over 1,000 young leaders that are recognized for their contributions to environmental causes, it's a fantastic initiative. Perhaps you can share some of the success stories of these public-private partnerships that we've been talking about in studio that you've actually witnessed on the ground.
Sure, and I think, Leanne, the partners that we're sitting with, the colleagues you're sitting with, it's exciting for me to even say that we've been supported by the NYDA, by, CCBSA, in our Green Youth Indaba. But really what we seek to do is to unearth some of the innovations that exist amongst young people. But also I think these partnerships have worked for us because then through CCBSA's partnership and the NYDA, for example, we've been able to travel across the country to TVET colleges, to rural areas, trying to kind of like figure out as to where are these smart brains. Because I always say, Leanne, that young people are not useless. It's just that they are used less, but also they are not given enough opportunities. And I can tell you the truth now, Leanne, to say it's not enough to expect NYDA alone to do it alone, because it's such a mammoth task. I mean, when you talk about youth unemployment, I think for me the key solution as well is that partnerships like this explore basically opportunities for young people to be job creators. So it's not just about young people looking for jobs, but if you can basically inspire young people to start businesses. CCBSA has got a project, Is in a Box. They've traveled with us across the country through our Green Innovators pitch. We're trying to help young people establish their businesses, but also help them with their business plans.
I mean, I'm reading one of the initiatives, and it may sound simple, but to some, it's something that I just stumbled across now. It's a job seekers initiative aimed at the youth. It's spearheaded by Metropolitan, offering 500 free Uber rides to South African citizens aged 18 to 35 that need to attend a job interview. I mean, we don't think about that. You think, oh no, well, you've got a job interview, but how are you going to get there? What are you going to wear? How are you going to present yourself? These are the kind of things that unfortunately the youth don't have. And when we bring these partnerships, it's amazing. So let me come again to you, Tsholofelo, from Coca-Cola's perspective. We talk about some of the initiatives you're involved in, but take us into how it actually works and perhaps, again, success stories. Let's make this a positive interview.
Yeah, thank you. So let's touch on, again, the framework that we use, right? I mean, some wise men once said that you can't, if you have too many priorities, you really are not prioritizing anything. Yeah. So we look at employability and as well as entrepreneurship. And most importantly, we also use education as a critical enabler. So when we look at education, we look at how do we support, access to the youth to get higher education. So we have a study buddy fund where we are helping learners in disadvantaged communities to access higher education. We know what's happening with, access to higher education. So we need to play our part to make sure that when we are servicing communities, we also helping them grow. We also look at employability. So employability is how do we then get young people employed within our business and, impart some skills there. So we have a learnership program where we take over about 850 learners who then get, gainful employment, and thereafter they can also go elsewhere to get that, be employable. Entrepreneurship, we've got a plethora of programs around employability, around entrepreneurship. But one I'm going to talk about is called Business in a Box. So, in the townships, puzzle shops, yes, back in the days they were thriving. And now when we find that young people are trying to do something, Sanele said that it's not that they are useless, they're actually not being used, or they're not being given those opportunities. So for us, Business in a Box is that we give you a business in a box. It's a startup. It's how do we then get private sector and public sector to also come in. So we have MOUs with government and other local municipalities and partners such as NYDA to try and get access to finance, because that's one of the plights that entrepreneurs, SMEs, especially young people, how do you start up your business if you don't have anything to start it up with? So we get somebody to help with access to finance. We get other partners on board to also help with giving business acumen. And then as CCBSA, we then look at how do we help your business get to another level where we do business development support. I must say, Leanne, you might just think puzzle shops are just puzzle shops, but you find a young person who has been, selling something on the street, they get a Business in a Box or mobile kitchen, they grow from just selling on the street their food, they have a second, mobile kitchen. So there are such a lot of success stories I can tell you. They also create employment, because that's about how do we create employment. We know that, economic development or growth in South Africa is geared on entrepreneurship, right? If we don't create these, entrepreneurs, SMMEs, we can't really create employment. So they create a lot of employment. You find that, for CCBSA, we've opened over 1,000 of these business in a boxes, and 89% of those are still operational, and they're still finding other opportunities to run their second store, their third store, their fourth store, and that's what we want to drive.
Amazing. I mean, that's what you want to hear, and I love the concept of a business in a box. A box business. Here it is, start it up. That's how it works, and I think that's great. At the moment, Waseem, we're in a very precarious situation as a country, where of course we're sitting and waiting to see what this government of national unity holds for us. And I personally am seeing how the business is just holding back a little bit. They just want to see how this works because they're nervous. They are nervous. And you don't blame it. South Africans are nervous. We're excited, we're optimistic, but at the same time we're nervous, which leads me to asking you, when we talk about the trust and this relationship between government and the private sector, I imagine it needs a lot more nurturing. It certainly does. There seems to always be a trust deficit, but what is that looking like, and how do we work on that and make it better so that business can help us more through the assistance of government?
Yeah, 100%, Leanne. And I think, over time, that deficit has grown and grown,
Absolutely.
right? And I think one of the things President Ramaphosa has tried to do in his first term is really be a consensus builder, right? We saw it first in the COVID-19 pandemic. We see it in how we're addressing the energy crisis, the logistics crisis as well. And even in the youth development circle, if you look at the number of private institutions that have come on board and joined the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, we see similar support from the private sector, right? And I think that consensus building must continue into the future. I think the government of national unity is there to represent the interests of a diverse groups of people, right? Youth being a major one of them. Young people make up the majority of the population in South Africa, yeah? And I think as much as we talk about a national dialogue, that needs to have a very youthful context attached to it, because youth bear the brunt of many of the challenges in South Africa. So I think certainly we must build on what has happened during President Ramaphosa's first term, continue the consensus building with business, because I can reassure you that none of our broad, ambitious goals are possible if we work in the silos that we have been.
And that is a fact. It's a golden fact that we need to be fully aware of. And Sanele, have you noticed a bit of a change? Let's be real about this. We can talk about these partnerships and how wonderfully they work, but are you noticing that they're slowing down a little bit and it's not as vigorous as it should be?
I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and Waseem, they would agree with me to say that as young people who are looking for more opportunities, young people want to be given platforms, but I also think I want to inspire and maybe implore young people to say they also need to take charge, because opportunities don't fall off the tree, they don't fall off the sky. We need to fight for those opportunities. We need to sit in the right tables, the right conversations. And I know that NYDA, for example, is a trusted organization, as well as CCBSA in terms of youth development. But I think for me, it's about us as young people as well, realizing that nothing comes for free, nothing comes easy. And I think what we've done over the years, Leanne, as well, is to say we inspire young people to fight for opportunities, but also to try and figure out as to where do they need help. Because you find that sometimes they applied NYDA once, they give up. They applied the ITC, they give up. Ours is to say, go back and find out what made your proposal fail. Try again, because I think persistence and consistency is one of the things and the rules that young people need to understand, because really, even though there may be a CCBSA, even though there may be an NYDA, they can't help all young people. So that means we need to figure out ways and means, which is why I really believe in entrepreneurship myself. Because, having failed in about 7 businesses, having started up the Green Youth Indaba in 2014 and to it attracting over, 1,000 young people a day now, it's been a journey. And I think for us, NYDA, for example, was in our early days, Waseem has been there as well ever since he took up as a CEO. So I think for us, it's quite exciting to also then share that success story with ourselves, to say to young people, don't give up, you need to fight harder. Biz in a box with CCPS, it's not an easy one. I mean, we're doing a tour with CCBSA, with Tsholofelo and the team, where we're basically running the Green Innovators pitch. We're looking for young people that have got innovative ideas, not copy and paste, because I think really what the country is looking for, even with the energy crisis, with the issue of climate change, we're looking for young people that can come up with innovative solutions.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how different or out the box it sounds, because, you know, Facebook sounded like an out-of-the-box idea, and look at it now.
No, exactly.
You know, these are the kind of things that, but it is supporting entrepreneurship that we need, because, I mean, I had two amazing guests here yesterday, and they were also very young, started these great things, but they've had the opportunities along the path. But let's sort of wrap up this conversation now and look to that Tsholofelo, because yes, nothing comes easy, and yes, the youth must know that you have to struggle to get ahead, and it doesn't just happen overnight. But at the same time, you need opportunities, and unfortunately, it just feels there are so little opportunities out there. Unemployment is nearing 50% for the youth, and this is it's a great concern, because this can lead to a lot of unrest and uncertainty in a country. So those opportunities, talk to us about them, and what do you think needs to be done, and a call to business from your side? How do we get involved?
I mean, as I said, I mean, co-creation and collaboration is key, right? We're looking to see where can we, you know, collaborate. We don't also just want to come up with programs and then, you know, shove it in somebody's face.
Yeah.
We want to create it with the community. So we go out to communities and see what are their needs, and then we co-create with, you know, the forums in the communities. Sanele and yourselves, you spoke about, you know, opportunities. I mean, I always say to young people, the opportunities are always there. It's just that sometimes they look really small. They're not so glamorous. So Sanele is talking about, you know, the Green and Innovators pitch. You know, recycling and collection of waste is not so glamorous to the youth, because you're working with waste. It's not so much. But they don't realize that trash is actually cash.
Yes.
You can actually start up a business from just collecting waste. So we're looking at those kind of things. And how do you then turn that waste into something else? I mean, you know, there's an energy crisis. How do you then take that waste and turn it into something else? We are willing to come on board and fund those kind of opportunities. You know, we just want the youth to know that the opportunities are out there. They just need to be on the lookout for them, right? I always tell the youth that, you know, popcorn kernels don't all pop at the same time, right? If you are consistent and you're committed to your craft, wait your turn, and that your popcorn kernel will pop at the right time, with the right environment that's driving you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And then, of course, the flavor comes with time.
Exactly.
The flavor comes with time. Your closing comments on this, because there are opportunities everywhere, and I always wonder how some people find them and others just don't have a clue. I didn't know there was a bursary. I didn't know that there was this opportunity. I didn't know. Is it an access to the information? Is it perhaps, and it is in certain instances, or is there a lot of that, this must just land at my doorstep without me looking?
So I think we've spoken in this interview a bit about entrepreneurship, a bit about jobs, about the private sector. But here's maybe a big idea as we kind of enter into a new era in South Africa. You know, there's a bit of freshness that comes with the new administration. Yeah. But I thought you said, when we look at it from the perspective of a young person, you know, where do I start here? Yeah? And we've done well in the education system, where South Africa has 100% access to education. Every young person starts school, right? And if we think about when they finish, the school system, for all its flaws, has some degree of structure, right? You wake up in the morning, you go to school. And then somehow we just expect young people to go out in the world and fend for themselves after that there. So we believe at the NYDA a national youth service, where a young person who leaves school but doesn't necessarily enter a higher education institution or doesn't go to the labor market, where the state offers them 1 year of paid work experience, right? Through service, doing actual work in communities to help solve South Africa's problems, where they can grow their work experience, grow their skills. That is a structured environment where they can, if they want to, you know, improve their matric results or get access to a bursary or start thinking about starting a business. It helps young people keep structure in their lives. And ultimately, it's going to help us reduce the number of young people not in employment, education, or training. And more importantly, make young people feel like they're active citizens, like they're not passive, people who have to stand in a queue at the post office every month to collect a grant, right? So I think we must, as we enter this new era, think of a bigger, grander vision of a South Africa we want for young people.
Wow. You know how many people commented yesterday when we asked the question of the day, let the youth go for compulsory service again. Bring that in. Let them go into the army. I'm like, okay, well, you never know. That might be it. I've got to wrap it. Sanele, can you do this in 30 seconds? Give me a closing pearl of wisdom.
Sure. So I think for me, it's also about preparation, and one, preparation, two, awareness. So there's not a lot of awareness going on for young people to understand where these opportunities are. So we need to do a lot of drive with the partners that you are sitting with there. Let's go to the rural areas, let's go to the townships. A lot of young people don't have access to information. Two, young people need to be prepared. There's a wise man who said it is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So for you to get funding at NYDA, it's not easy. You need to be prepared. You need to meet the criteria. So the process is there. And the process, young people need to understand. And therefore, they just need to prepare themselves so that then they can access some of these opportunities that exist.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Sanele. Thanks to all of my guests for their pearls of wisdom here this morning. Let's quickly take a break. We'll see you to say goodbye after this.